Welcome to Veterans in Transition. Each week we travel around the region highlighting veteran-related news, issues, and resources. In this episode, we hear from three very interesting Army veterans. We start with Antoinette Scott, a survivor of a roadside bomb and Purple Heart recipient. Beauty queen Raquel Riley Thomas tells us her story, which starts in foster care. And Winfred McCullough Turner is a woman of many firsts. She is the National Gallery of Art's first African-American woman to serve in this executive role.
Correspondent Lisa Taylor has these interviews.
Army National Guard veteran Antoinette Scott survived a roadside explosion that left her with life-threatening injuries and an even stronger sense of determination. She is the first DC woman to be awarded the Purple Heart for service in Iraq.
I was in South Central Baghdad, and my job that day was to drive to the airport to take the troops to the airport because they were going to their next destination, whether it was home for R&R or to their next assignment, because when you're on active duty, your transition changes even when you're on board. When that calendar day comes, you have to go to the next site of duty, whether it's Germany or US or whatever. So I had troops going to different places by way of flying, and I was taking them to the airport. Well, midway into that trip, my convoy was hit by enemy attack, and they did that by a remote detonator, where we, in a small five vehicle convoy, were attacked by an IED. My vehicle was the middle vehicle, and my vehicle was the only vehicle carrying troops. So they could see from a distance, they being the enemy, could see from a distance that we had a small convoy, and they're very intelligent. They can almost assume that if there are two Hummers in the front, two Hummers in the back, one big vehicle in the middle, it's something valuable. It's not just a regular day on the road. So we were targeted, and they set that remote at the exact time when my vehicle rode over that place where the explosion was set off. But I remember, and I don't always get to tell this part of the story, but I remember checking myself from head to toe, saying, God, if I have been hit, I better have all my limbs. I want everything I came here with. So I know it seemed like slow motion, but when I think back, I did a real quick check. I was like, okay, I got all my fingers on my toes, my legs are moving. Okay, I take this seat.
But your jaw was gone and you didn't feel it. You
had no idea.
No pain?
None. The adrenaline was so high that I didn't have time to stop to realize that I was injured. So I get out the vehicle, got my weapon in my little bag with all my more bullets and stuff in it. And I'm like, where's everybody? I need to check and count. He's like, everybody's fine. I'm like, no, I need to see them because as the driver, it's my job to make sure that I do a head count and I know that everybody's okay. And so I'm like, well, we need to get in position. He's like, no, call her. He's like, call her a medic. And I'm saying, who needs a medic? And now everybody's like, she don't know. And I'm saying, oh, they're acting weird. And why aren't we in position? Because we've just been hit by something. And now the blood is coming down faster. And so he's like, can you just please sit in the Hummer? I was like, okay, well, I'm thirsty. So they're like, okay, but we have water. I said, well, do you have a mirror? And they're like, they're acting really weird. But to them, I'm acting weird. And I'm saying, I'm sweat and it's blood. I said, somebody's bleeding on me. Where's this blood coming from? Because I'm thinking I'm sweating. It did not click until the medic came and said, where's the soldier who's been hit? And I was like, and I literally pushed my chin up to clench my teeth. And it was probably 6 to 8 minutes before I realized it was me.
At what point did you feel pain? Did you ever associate the blood, the disfigurement of your face? Did that click in your brain that I should be hurting right now? Or was it you just in shock?
I was in shock. Now I know the definition of being in shock. I was in shock, and I was also in protective mode. So because it was my truck, because those were my truths, because I was in charge to make sure that I delivered that precious cargo to the destination, I never had time to worry about myself, and I definitely did not have time to be in pain. I never felt any pain. By the time they talked me into finally sitting down to take care of me, the medics were pulling up a second later, and they're like, we're going to help her. But I could walk. I was fine. I could walk. And when I finally pushed my chin up, and when I realized I did it, because looking back, I had to do it several times because I could not talk unless I pushed my chin up because my jaw was completely severed. But the last time I did it, before the medics came, I finally took like a deep breath, like, it was me. I've been hit. That's my blood, and I'm the one that needs a medic. And in that moment, the medic pulled up. So I never really had a gap to stop and think about it. As soon as the medics came and got me to the Troop Medical Center, they were calling for a helicopter because they said for my injuries, I need to be flown to Baghdad Hospital. When I got to Baghdad Hospital, they were making flight arrangements because they were saying I needed to be flown to Germany. In between all of that, they were giving me such good pain medicine. I never felt anything.
So were you the only one injured in the whole truck?
Yes, I was the only one injured. So everything happened on the left side of the vehicle, the truck, myself, my face, the wheels, the windshield. So I have glass in both eyes permanently. The impact was so forceful. My chin strap to my Kevlar or helmets, as y'all would call it, was shot off. My protective goggles that I had on were blown off. But against medical advice, I wore contact lenses. I had just went to the eye doctor because we still have our regular medical appointments. So I had just had an eye doctor's visit a week or two prior to this incident, and they were getting ready to take my pay because you're not supposed to wear contacts in the desert. It's dirty, and it's hard to keep up with sanitation. But my eyeglass medicine was so strong, it gave me headaches in my temporals. So I tried, but I just could not wear my glasses, and my depth perception was off because I couldn't see for distance. So my medicine was that strong in my glasses. I had learned how to wear my contacts and how to stay clean, and I had tons of extra pairs of contacts. I would change them often. Had I worn my glasses and not my contacts, with all the way that explosion hit, I would be blind. I would be blind because the impact was so forceful from the glass from the windshield and the chin strap being shot off, the goggles being shot off, and the glass still able to get in my eyes. The small repeal of the contact lenses saved my vision.
Raquel Riley Thomas had the rare experience of trading in her Army fatigues and combat boots for formal gowns and stilettos. Your story is one of 110,000 in the archive at the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. And when we were looking at veterans to interview for this program, yours jumped out at me because not only do you have a fascinating military experience, you also have experience as a beauty queen. And I hadn't come across many, if any, in the collection that had both of those credits in the story. So I definitely wanted the world to know what that was like for you and how it's possible to do and how you continue to carry on some of that tradition today. So Before we get into your military and your beauty pageant background, I just wanted to find out a little bit about where you're from, any details about your background leading up to when you got into the military.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I appreciate this sincerely. It's very humbling for you to have me today. Let's talk about where it all began. I actually was born in Maryland. I was born in La Plata, Maryland. A lot of people don't know that. And I was raised in Lexington Park, Maryland. For the first 7 years of my life, I actually was raised by a foster mother. She was a woman who just simply took me under her wing because my mother was very young at the time when she had me. She had me when she was 16. And so it was just a situation where she just needed some help. And this woman who I called my godmother, she just came in and took me in and took care of me until I was 7. And then when I was 7, I went to live with my mother. So I would say that it really began with a woman named Mrs. Ethel Nelson, who just took me and loved on me and encouraged me to be, hopefully being a good woman that I am, hopefully am today. Well, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out later on in my life.
The experience of being on a campus, an HBCU campus, had some effect on you in some way. So what can you attribute to that experience to your life today, just being on that kind of college campus?
I really did enjoy the games. I enjoyed the football games, and I enjoyed the camaraderie that I saw amongst the sororities and the fraternities, which, of course, ultimately I ended up, becoming a Delta. And so it made me appreciate that part. Excuse me. It made me appreciate that part. The other thing too is that I had the opportunity to be the pageant queen, if you will, for the ROTC. So I was Miss ROTC. I only went up against one other woman or young woman at the time, and I just gave a speech and told them why I should be Miss ROTC, and they selected me. So I still have that photo from that time frame. Who would have ever known that was going to lead into me actually being in the pageant business? So
amazing. So that was your first experience with.
Yes.
Wow. And it happened to be connected to ROTC.
Right. Miss ROTC. Yes, ma'am.
So tell me about when you're out and about and people recognize the fact that you're a beauty queen. And then do you usually have to mention that I was in the military, or do people see you as a military person and you have to tell them I was a beauty queen? How does those conversations come about when you're just like meeting people? Are they always shocked?
They usually are very shocked that I was in the military. Most people do not believe that I was in the Army, and until I start speaking the lingo, because a lot of military, we can kind of tell if you've been in the military or not, because we say certain things. Like I still say headgear. I tell my kids, go get your headgear, in the wintertime. So we still use that type of language. It's interesting that that transition, it was such an oxymoron to go from being in the military to the pageant world. But, believe it or not, they have a lot of parallels to them, because there's a discipline that you have to have in pageantry, just like you have to have in the military. You have to stay focused, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to tune out negativity. And a lot of times I had to do that in the military. Sometimes I was the only African-American officer that was walking around. So, in amongst, a pool of men. And then there maybe there was some, Caucasian or Asian officers who were women, but very few of us were African-American women. So I had to deal with that piece. And then the same situation in pageantry. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of African-American women who get into pageants. It just so happened recently that, that African-American women are starting to see that they can be in pageants. And one of the reasons why after I won, I went and found out that DC was up for sale. And I said, you know what? They have no franchise owners who are Black. I'm going to be the first. So my goal was to continuously not only bring in, all women from all different walks of life, because I'm very big on diversity. I learned that in the military. You have to have diversity. There's no such thing as just one particular race. We all have to work together, because it makes for a better pageant too as well, because, everyone has, we all bleed the same color, and it's just one of those things where, we're all going through the same types of struggles, just in different formats.
So what is Queen V Day about?
So last year, Queen V Day came about when I was sitting in my beautician's, chair, and she and I were just having a conversation, and I was just like, I just really love how you take care of my hair. I just gave her a compliment, and I was like, it would be really great if I could see more veterans have this opportunity to just have a day of pampering, because it makes me feel so good when I leave your seat. And I just started talking more and more, and I said, you know what, why don't we do a day? I said, would you be interested in doing a day where we just pampered a veteran, just a deserving veteran in the community who, may have, fallen on hard times. And, maybe I can get all the people who I know, basically I'm in the pageant business. So, I mean, women who can do makeup, people who can do hair, people who, who are stylists. I mean, I'm in that artistic environment. So why don't I, call up my friends and see if everybody will jump on and sponsor a day. And that's exactly what happened. We did Queen V Day. The woman who was selected, she ended up getting $7,500 worth of services in one day. It was a very tearful day, and she just felt so humbled. And I, more importantly, felt very blessed to be able to give that to her. And I'm thinking about doing it this year too as well.
Winifred Turner enjoyed a military career that spanned more than 2 decades. She is now the Chief of Administrative Services at the National Gallery of Art, the first African-American female to serve in a senior leadership position there. So you grew up on a farm. Some people grow up on a farm and they're from large families and everybody pitched in and helped with the crops and canning and all that stuff. Was that your experience?
That's exactly my experience. Helped my mom do a lot of canning. We had peaches, we had blackberries, you name it, she canned it. We farmed, we raised everything. I remember going to the store and the only thing my mom would buy would be like sugar, flour, and if she wanted to get some little treats for us like candy or cookies, that was it. We raised everything else.
That sounds like a good life. As a city girl who has Southern roots, that sounds like a beautiful, beautiful experience. Just growing.
Looking back on it, at the time you think, oh my gosh, all this work, this, that. But once you get older and you look back on it, you think, man, what a great life. It really was a wonderful life.
So tell me if there were other people in your family who joined the military, and if so, who were they?
I only have one family member, and that was one of my mom's brothers. My mom also came from a large family. I believe there were 9 or 11 of them. And she had one brother who had joined the Army, and she always had his picture on her dresser. And so that probably was an influence, but more so than that was just the excitement of wanting to do something grand, wanting to do something different. And in fact, I remember in high school, my dream was to always be a lawyer. And once I graduated from high school, I went to Velma Jackson High in Camden, and then I went on to Jackson State University. And while I was there, I was recruited by one of the ROTC instructors and said, come join the class. And I did, and I was having so much fun. So much fun. I sort of forgotten about being the lawyer because I was having so much fun jumping out of rappelling and doing different things like that. And I just really enjoyed that. And so it stuck.
Okay. So you're one of our veterans who didn't go straight into the military from high school. You actually went to college, joined the ROTC, and you graduated from college before going active duty?
Right. I graduated from college, and at the same time, the graduation ceremony was in the morning, and then the commissioning ceremony was in the afternoon. So as soon as I received my degree, I also received my commission as a second lieutenant in the Quartermaster Corps. Well, my first assignment was Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault. And so when I got there, the first job they put me in was motor officer, working at the motor pool. And then later supply services officer, working at the at that time they called it the ration warehouse, where all the rations would be. We would issue rations to all the different organizations, the combat arms, combat support arms units that were coming through. We would issue them their rations. And these are the rations they would take out to the field and either prepare them. And back then, these were C rations that we would issue out. And then later on from there, I moved up a little bit and went on to become the platoon leader. But before I get to that point, let me back up a little bit. One of the things that stand out vividly in my mind, and I've often told this story, is when I was at Fort Campbell, I had this major, the executive officer, the XO, told me, Lieutenant, I'm going to send you on special assignment over to the child care center. They have a freezing hiring over there. And Miss Landers, I'll never forget her, she was a very nice civilian lady. He said, she needs help at the child care center. I'm gonna send you over there because, and it's gonna be a 6-month special duty assignment. And the reason I'm sending you is not because you're not good, it's because you're not gonna make it here. And you're not gonna make it because they're not gonna allow you to make it. And he was referring to the good old boys. And so I went over there, I worked with her. It was actually quite refreshing to see the little kids, work with the kids and work with the lady. And then when I came, and he said, hopefully when you come back, they'll all be gone. He was absolutely right. When I came back, they were all gone and my career took off. And so I'm pretty sure that a lot of people today in today's Army may not have to worry about things like that. But back then, Fort Campbell was having a really hard time adjusting to women and especially to Black women in the military.
So I read that you also did an assignment in Saudi Arabia. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, actually, that assignment should never have happened because at the time I was scheduled to go to Korea. And they said, you know, you're going to be going on an unaccompanied tour to Korea. And I really didn't want to do that. And so I pleaded with my assignment officer and I was like, well, can you just send me anywhere? It really doesn't matter. I'll go anywhere, just anywhere. I just don't want to go to Korea. And then he said, well, I do have one assignment in Saudi Arabia, but you know, we're not sending women there yet. We're not sending women. You would be the first woman to ever go do this job. And I thought, well, okay, I'll do it though. I'll do it. So he said, well, I'll have to get approval and then I'll call you back. So he called me back and he said, well, you have the job. And it was the Assistant Chief of Staff for Logistics. And so I was in charge of all the logistics coming in country and this was right after Desert Storm, because right after Desert Storm, the mission was to clean up all of the logistics that was left in country and bring it back and you know, turn all that stuff back in and take care of the forces, the Army forces that were rotating in and out of Saudi Arabia during that time. And so that was a very, very difficult job to do in that the Saudis do not like to deal with women. So wherever I went, I had to take my deputy with me, the male deputy, so that he could communicate, because if we start talking, it's like, you know, you're just jabbering, I'm not really listening to you. And to my current job where I am today, which is the Chief of Administrative Services at the National Gallery of Art. I've been there now for almost 5 years. And I am the first Black woman to be a senior leader at the National Gallery of Art. And we just made history again this week when my boss, they hired a new African-American female to be an executive officer. And she will be the first African-American woman to be an executive officer at the National Gallery of Art. So we both made history in that regard.
In our next episode of Veterans in Transition, veteran correspondent Michael Black has an interview with Navy Vice Admiral Durwood D.C. Curtis. That's all for this edition of Veterans in Transition. We ask that you like us on Facebook and follow us on social media. We'd like to hear from you if you know of a veteran story or a resource that's having an impact in the community. Reach out to us at info@vetsintransition.com. I'm Army veteran Monica Valdivia Wiley. We'll see you next time.